On Talking Lifestyle, The Daily Drive. Brought to you by the 50 Up Club.
Good to be here on this Monday night. Nick Bennett with you and Sam Stove in for Kaylee Harris. Our number's 13 12 83 as we dive off the deep end to Property Fast Track. Charles Tarbey, good evening, sir.
Good evening. How are you, Nick?
Going well, thank you.
Charles?
Sam, how come your chair's higher than mine?
Well, it's there's wonderful new fandangled things. Have you heard about these hydraulic chairs, pneumatic chairs?
I just come off Sky Business and I have to put mine up to the highest possible height just to be level with everybody else.
Because you've got to see eye to eye on things, don't you?
They do, yes. You see things differently when you're looking at it from my point of view, Nick.
So, Charles, good to have you here tonight. You've got lots of experience to share with the folks. If you have a phone call, you want to make it 13 12 83. Charles can guide you through the whole real estate affair, whether it's commercial, residential. Got any questions about tenancy? 13 12 83 is our number as we go out around Australia. 882 Brisbane, 954 Sydney, 1278 Melbourne, and digital in Perth.
And as testament to the breadth of your knowledge, Charles, a little later on in the program, ordinarily we'll do Around the Grounds where we talk to one of yours.
We're doing something different tonight.
We're going to change things up a little bit.
Okay.
We're going to just shake it up because we've got to keep it exciting. So rather than speaking to one individual Century 21 agent tonight, we're going to get Charles Tarbey's national snapshot where we get a 15 to 20, sometimes I'll even allow 30 seconds summary of the property markets of Australian capital cities.
30 seconds each capital city.
Something like that.
Okay.
I reckon you could manage that on your head.
I can. It just
sleep
makes me think that Sam might not have got as much content as he wanted tonight for the show. So
no, not at all, Charles. It's your expertise needs to be aired.
Let's give it a
for the
test
benefit
run.
of the nation.
Let's give it a test run.
Yeah.
We'll also take a look at the rise of prefabricated houses. Now, we were talking about, we'll do this later, Sam, maybe another date, the Earthship houses built from recycled gear. So these things are a world away from bespoke built houses. These things you'll see the trusses, the roof trusses on the back of trucks being taken prefabricated straight to the site. You can whack a house up within about 6 weeks.
Yeah.
So we'll take a look at that later.
Sometimes called modular homes. I think it's a more modern way of talking to them than kit homes. And I think you do need to suspend your preconceptions about what a kit home is, because I think it used to be a dirty word, right, Charles? Or
it's changed dramatically.
Yeah.
It's changed dramatically. I mean, prefab homes are turning up and they're 5-star in some cases,
Well, even skyscrapers are all prefabricated now. Giant buildings, there are huge benefits both in cost and timing to building certain key components in factories and then trucking them out to the site and bolting them together and rather than constructing it all out of the ether on the site. So that's really interesting. We're going to speak with Rob Colquhoun. He's the founder and managing director of PreBuilt. They're one of the nation's leading modular homes.
He's the big Colquhoun.
He is the big Colquhoun.
I took the line out of you because that's the sort of thing you would say.
It is
so
kind of
get in there
thing
first.
I would say, Charles. That's right. 13 12 83. Charles Tarbey tonight taking your calls on Property Fast Track. We'll also take a look at auctions with Matt Shalhoub tonight. Now, speaking of which, a UTS study, now that's a university in Sydney, of course, the University of Technology in Sydney, has found that sunny days, Charles, can boost the price at auction by more than $11,000. Now, we don't know what that is as a percentage basis, but never mind. So UTS cross-referenced the sale price of more than 800,000 Sydney properties between the year 2000, so that's you were going right back when there was a boom then, I remember, to 2014 with corresponding weather data. A sunny day increased the price by just under 1%. What's going on with that? Is that real?
Well, yeah, look, it is real because if you think about the seasons, which we haven't had, the real estate seasons, we haven't had them in the last 5 or 6 years because of the boom cycle. So winter became just another day and people were out bidding because there were so many people looking. But definitely for as long as I can recall, it's been seasonal. We're at the spring selling season, people come out and so on. The most astute buyers are the ones that do go out when the rain's happening. They go out when it's freezing cold, because that's when you really find out what a property looks like. We'll find out whether the gutters are leaking or whether there are issues with the home. That's when people should be going out and buying, and that's probably why the prices are lower, because there's not as many people out looking at that same time.
Yeah, that's very good advice. I like to have a bit of rain about when I'm inspecting a house. I, have a look under the house. Is the water flowing away properly? How are those gutters shaping up, as you say?
You've got to imagine what it's like for people that live in areas where 6 months of the year there's snow.
Yeah.
Try and imagine what real estate would be like there, open for inspections or getting out in the blizzard,
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
It'd
it's certainly
be very different.
it's
Australia's unique.
Yeah,
Australia's
isn't it
very
just?
unique.
It's huge, and there's very diverse weather. The interesting thing about the rain, though, they accounted for this in the study. They think that rain affected the price by about 0.17%, and the main factor was sunny versus cloudy. That was really what was steering this. I wonder if it's just about humans being so prone to excitement when vitamin D is juicing through us.
I'm just overcome with joy that somebody would take all this time to do this survey so that we can all be so more educated. It's really incredible. If somebody wants to buy something, they're going to buy it, and that's just the way it is. It doesn't matter what the weather's like. But it's so funny where all these reports come. It's really extraordinary what people must do in a day to come up with this sort of concept.
But I'm really pleased they did, though, because we've, filled 2 or 3 minutes worth now?
Yes, less for me on the
20 seconds per capital city now, I think,
There you
Charles.
go.
We were 20 seconds, yeah.
And we're a moment closer to talking about prefabricated houses. So we call them prefab as a shortened thing. For the past 20 years, it's been a term as dirty as shag pile carpets. Charles, I know you had those once, and so did I.
I did.
And sunken living rooms. But they're making a comeback. It's not the ugly government housing of your childhood.
Yeah, these are designed by top architects. They're top quality, and best of all, the construction phase on the site of your new home can be as little as 6 weeks. Rob Colquhoun is the founder and managing director of PreBuilt, a prefabricated house company, and he joins us now. G'day, Rob.
Good evening, gentlemen. How are you?
Going well, thank you. So, Rob, it seems like we've done a bit of a backflip because, some time ago, if you had said the word prefab, the architects and the building snobs would probably scream at you. Why have we learnt to accept it with, more of an open mind and a better view these days?
Look, I think it's taken probably 10 or 15 years to change the mindset of the market in terms of what prefab can offer. And that's largely been brought about, in my mind, from the inclusion of really great architectural design. And I think traditionally modular homes or modular classrooms weren't considered by architects. Nowadays they are, and a range of some of Australia's best architects want to get involved and work with product to make really resolve architecture and get a great product out there.
Rob, can you still get a mix of both? In other words, you can get the modular home delivered, but get a full bathroom and kitchen that you might normally get put in?
Yes, so it pretty much provides the full offer of a normal construction of a house. I think nowadays, again, what it does is it creates or provides a really refined process of accessing the customer with a design or a design process. So we're able to connect our customers with architect or our architect or other architects to design, to receive their brief, understand what it is that they're after, still having full understanding of what our transport constraints are and manufacturing constraints, and able to pull that together and deliver or resolve and deliver a great product for the customer. So the product that we do and build in our factories in Victoria are very much fully resolved. They'll be clad, they'll have bathrooms, they'll have kitchens, they'll have stone bench tops, they'll even have dishwashers and fridges already installed.
Wow.
What are the big benefits then of building a modular home? Is it price? Is it time? Is it a combination of the two?
Look, it's all of those things. I think the biggest element that we're finding now with our sort of customer base is to really define process, so people can see where they're going and what they're going to get. It enables them to get to a price point which is fixed sooner rather than later, because it becomes a very accurate fixed price as opposed to something that can be sorted out later on. So the traditional route of getting an architect to design a response to your brief and then going to the market of tendering and then finding that might be varied against your original budget, that gets removed because the architect and the builder are working closely together to position the product and iteratively adjust it.
And Rob, have we been a bit slow to take up modular houses in Australia? Because I remember watching some episodes of Grand Design. It must have been almost 10 years ago. And there were beautiful homes being built, and there were German companies who were experts in building them in factories off-site and delivering them to the building site. Have we borrowed some of these processes from other countries?
No, oddly, I think Australia, and I've seen a lot of what's been done around the world, I think we're leading the world in terms of volumetric prefab housing. The Europeans are particularly good at panelised systems of prefab, which is an integral part of the market, and that's great, and that's traditionally led by the demands of their climate in Europe, and particularly Sweden, where up to sort of 80% of houses are done in a pre-made wall frame system, where insulation is absolutely important. But here, because of our wide roads and our approach to design and speed required, we're able to do full volumetric modules, and that enables us to then create a house which might be made up of 2 to 14 to 16 different modules, which all fit on a separate truck.
And when you've got esteemed architects like Glenn Murcutt happy to embrace them, then clearly there's something good going on.
Yeah, I think that's just a reflection. I mean, we've worked with a lot of Australia's great architectural firms, and they're all basically the smarter the architect, the more ready they are to embrace the opportunities, because they can see it as a way of delivering a resolved product really quickly. Once they understand the constraints of the building process, they match that or marry that up with the constraints of the site or the design brief or the budget, and they can quickly and concisely develop a design which responds to all of those needs.
Rob Colquhoun is with us tonight. He's the founder and MD of PreBuilt. We're talking prefabbed houses. Now, what about the block? Have I got a sloping block? Can I use a prefab house there, or do I need level?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing we do is we assess the block or the site to make sure we can get access. And some streets just are not accessible, and that's fine. They're better to be built by an in-situ builder. If we've got good access for down the road and in front of the site, and we can reach it with a crane or unload it properly, then it's suitable for modular. A sloping site itself normally presents a better advantage for a modular home than a slab-type construction, because you'll have a footing system which enables a suspended floor to be installed. Mm-hmm. So basically, the more difficult the site or the more complex the site, the more appropriate or suitable a prefab solution might be.
Rob, what's finance like nowadays? Is that a difficult issue?
It's a good question. Over the last sort of 15 years, there's been probably a percentage of our clients which their banks may have challenges with providing finance, and that might be until the house itself is on the land. Once it's on the land, then they can go down the traditional route of having the house and land valued and providing the basis for which they'll lend money.
That seems a bit archaic to me.
It is. Look, it's basically fitting. It's the paradigm of traditional lending with our banking system, and already we're finding that changing a lot with some of the more modern banks. Yeah. And oddly, it depends just on who you're talking to, even within the same bank.
What about product range, Rob? At PreBuilt, how many different modular homes have you got? How many different designs am I able to choose from?
We have a range of standard designs which have been developed by our architect, Xavier Perkins. This is the dominant architect we work with. And they're really a starting point of a conversation that enables our clients to sort of quickly assess a price point and a design direction from where they might start the discussion with their architect. Once they understand what direction they want to go in, then they can start to customise it. And every one of our houses is customised by our architect to respond more fully to their brief. So it's really, let's say there's 5 standard designs, but then over and above that, we're pretty much over half of them would be fully customised.
Rob, thanks for your time. A fascinating insight into prefab houses. Rob Colquhoun, founder and managing director of PreBuilt. Appreciate it. 13 12 83 is the number tonight as we do Property Fast Track. Charles Tarbey here to take your calls. I'm looking forward to the moment when you can actually deliver these prefab houses with Deliveroo.
Someone pedaling a bicycle.
Yeah, just a myriad of bicycles
with
coming into those hard-to-get-to suburbs.
Prefabbed home on the back. It's actually very interesting to go and check out. There are a range of companies that do this. It's not just PreBuilt. There are a lot of other companies as well. And their websites are really good and interactive, and they've got quite nice display villages, virtual display villages of the homes that they make. Some of them architecturally are stunning.
Yeah, it definitely has a place. There's no question about it. So I think it's something that where some people can't afford a prefab house can be done so quickly. I don't see an issue with it, but I don't think it will take off, say, in a suburban area too easily, where you've got solid brick homes, about what council requirements might be, those sorts of issues. So it is archaic the way it is now with various town planning as we see it. So it'll be interesting to see how they might deal with that. But you've got to go back to the old days of a company called VJ Ray that used to pull up old houses that are going to get knocked down, put them on the back of a semi-trailer, move them up, build some foundations, put them on a block of land out west and sell it. And they did exceptionally well. Doing that.
I think that's the start of the block this year, wasn't it? The 5 houses that they did.
On the back of a truck?
Yeah, they shipped in 5, would have been knocked down. They would have 5 old weatherboard cottages that were roughly similar, plonked them in a street in wherever it was.
And did Scott's opening piece go like this? And look what fell off the back of a truck.
No, I would have used that gag for sure. That's a Scotty Cam joke.
It is a Scotty Cam joke. Property Fast Track tonight. Charles Tarbey's here to take your calls, 13 12 83. In a moment, we'll go around the grounds, but we'll stay with Charles. He's going to give us some snapshots of some city markets, some markets around Australia, and Matt Shalhoub joins us soon as well, checking auctions. You know, there are some great advantages in being the world's largest real estate company. For a start, your Century 21 local office uses the best technology and knowledge base in the world. Combined with the fact that each office is independently owned and operated, your local Century 21 agent knows your city, your suburb, your town and your street. It also means Century 21 agents can offer a huge range of resources and experience, including information from over 300 offices around the country. It's no surprise Century 21 is the fastest growing real estate brand in Australia. Buying, selling or looking for a new home to rent? Contact your local Century 21 office and find out why they really are smarter, bolder, faster. Visit century21.com.au. And Charles Tarbey, you get to prove all that now because you're the guy going around the grounds. We're going to throw the big blanket out.
All right. Okay. And so what have I got?
Well, we're going to start with our frequencies, right?
Okay.
882 in Brisbane.
Brisbane. What a great marketplace. Hasn't come into its own. It's got a lot of upside, but that upside's not going to show itself too quickly in this cycle.
Yeah.
From what I can see, we've got a lot of apartments due to settle in the next 24 months. That's going to probably stabilise that market in certain locations. Good place to start looking to buy in and start making offers.
I'm going to break our own rules here.
Oh, right.
If you were a young family looking to kind of get a leg into a big established capital city in Australia, do you think Brisbane presents one of the most competitive opportunities?
Price-wise, yes. Price-wise, definitely. And potential upside because its economy is going okay. It hasn't had the increase that the other capital cities have had. When you look at Sydney, 75% over the last 5 years, Brisbane, 23% capital growth. So it gives you an idea.
But it's still pretty healthy. What, 23 over how many? Over 5 years?
Yeah.
So it's all just shy of 5% per annum. It's not bad.
Yes,
consistent.
Well, Sydney 75% in the same period
nuts.
of time. So, and Sydney's a bit crazy, but still, nonetheless, it's a good solid marketplace.
Okay, 1278, Melbourne.
Ah, what a great city. That's starting to come back off the boil a little bit, not a lot, but its auction clearance rates have changed, 71.4% this last week with 1,299 auctions. So it's still pretty healthy from that perspective, but I expect to see a slight negative growth in pricing in the Melbourne market coming up over the next few months.
Now, this is anecdotal. I'll tag it with that. But I've heard that places, new apartments in Melbourne purchased 3 to 4 years ago, in some instances, are worth less now than what folks paid for them.
That has happened, and that will happen in some other capital cities as well. Because when you buy something 2 or 3 years ago during the upcycle, everybody's excited. Often you don't think about the fact that you're not going to own that property for 2 or 3 years' time, and a lot of things change in that time. Mostly being APRA, with all of the different levers they placed on lending and the banks and so on, it made a lot of investors disappear. So those investors are not there to fill the gap, and that's what could cause some problems.
All right, let's go digital radio, but in Perth.
Perth, what a great capital city Perth is. It's the most isolated city in the world, of course. Yeah, its vacancy rates have been hovering over 10% for quite some time, going back at the start of this year and midway of this year. They reached the point that you were talking about, Nick, where the price of properties that was purchased 5 years ago and went through a complete boom cycle and now back to where they started 5 years ago. There's negative equity and a lot of property over there, so a lot of pain being felt in that one. When we see the CoreLogic pain and gain chart come out, Perth and Darwin will have a big showing in that. But the vacancy rates have now dropped this week to 7.65%, been hovering in that range. And they had an increase of 0.24% in rent this week over last. So I'm starting to see the bottom in Perth, and I think that's a place to have a close look at.
Probably a good time to buy.
Well, last week, the share market pushed through 6,000 basis points for the first time since GFC. And it's largely being driven by a return to form from the miners, the big commodity guys. So Twiggy Forrest is doing magnificently, your BHPs, your Rios. How much of Perth's property market is pegged to the performance of the commodity market?
A tremendous amount was. And that was part of the problem. I wouldn't have bought a commercial strata in that capital city in the last 5 years. I would have in Melbourne, Adelaide, Sydney, Brisbane, never there. And if you go there now, there's a lot of vacant shops. All the miners have moved out. So with the good mining companies well established there, they're just creating another industry that's not dominating the state, which is what mining was doing.
What about 954? That's our frequency in Sydney.
Oh, what a great place too. 64.4% clearance rate. It's like, well, I'd take the wind out of Matt Shalhoub's work, but 1,089 auctions on the weekend. And it's all sort of changing. It'll change over the next couple of days. The problem with Sydney is that there are pockets still without stock, and that's the hard part. There are still buyers in certain areas, and they're still holding the values up. In other areas, not so. Stock rose across the country by 1.65% over this time last week, and we've had 5 weeks in a row of stock increases, but not always in the areas that are needed. So some parts of Sydney are still hot. The others are learning what it's like to be in a real estate market.
Well, there you go. There's Charles Tarbey's national sales wrap. There you go, some ideas.
We need a sound of applause. Round of applause sound effect. There we go, Charles.
Outstanding work.
It's all off the cuff tonight.
Knowledge of Australia's
I
property
could be
market.
saying whatever it is I wanted to say. No, all those stats were real.
Yeah.
Property Fast Track, 13 12 83. Charles is here for a little time longer, so if you got a call for him tonight, he's here to take it. Now, Matt Shalhoub is going to join us right now. He runs his own auction company called Under the Hammer. Good evening, Matt.
Good evening, how are you?
Mate, going well, thank you. Now, Charles didn't want to steal your thunder. Why is that, Charles?
Oh, well, Matt has got to talk about auction stats and all as well, and I started going into his numbers. So sorry about that, Matt. But you're going to talk about people and lack of bidders and interesting things like that, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, good.
We've definitely seen a major change in the last couple of weeks.
Good guess.
In what ways, Matt, could you go through some of those major changes for us?
Well, first and foremost, the number of people has definitely reduced in terms of attending auctions and not only registering but wanting to participate. We've seen a major reduction in terms of the number of properties that have either one registration or no registrations on the day of auction.
And what do you put that down to, Matt?
Consumer confidence, largely.
It's interesting. I had this chat over the weekend, and I decided along with this person. Well, happens to be my brother, that, things are actually pretty good out there. Like, everyone's saying, oh, it's bad, the economy's not doing so well and the confidence is down. But I look about and I see positivity, but maybe I'm just too much of an idealist. What do you see it as?
Well, I think the opportunistic buyers are out there. And I think that you got to remember, with the everyday person who's looking to buy a home, whether it be their first home or an upgrade, they're always going to have that fear of, well, am I paying too much? Because the media is telling me that things are going to continue to spiral. I don't think that these times are anything unusual for anyone who's been in the industry for any period of time. In fact, I think we see almost every year a period of lull activity. My prediction is that with the bit of downturn, that I'll bring a few of the buyers out of the woodwork who are looking to seize an opportunity prior to Christmas, and it'll be great fortunes for them.
Now, what about Melbourne, mate? Came back as expected after the Melbourne Cup weekend, a bit over 70% clearance of about 1,100 auctions. Is that an okay result?
I think it's a fantastic result for them. The only thing that I'm very mindful of, excuse my voice, gentlemen, but the only thing that I'm very mindful of at the moment is when you're looking at clearance rate as a percentage overall, I'm just really mindful of the unreported results as well, and that's definitely having an impact there. So without trying to put the bursting of anyone's bubble, but I think that's a very good clearance rate across the board. But whether it be Sydney, Melbourne or Brisbane, I'm always very mindful of how many weren't reported.
Matt, your voice sounds fine to me, although perhaps are you saying that maybe you worked a bit harder in trying to shift houses over the weekend, had to talk a bit more?
It was definitely a harder slog, the average turnaround time of an auction has definitely increased, in terms of time we need to spend on the floor and getting in there and giving the agents a hand and doing a few negotiations. But that's what we get paid for, I guess.
The real auctioneers, please step forward. Matt, that's what it's like right now, the real auctioneers.
No, absolutely. But I heard you guys talking about stock levels before, and if I can just add to that, we're going into the back part of December. At this stage, the 16th of December being the last Saturday and the 20th of December, I think being the Wednesday, with very strong auction numbers up until the death.
All right, Matt Shalhoub, always good to hear what's happening out there in the burbs. Matt's an auctioneer. His company's called Under the Hammer. Thanks for your time tonight, mate.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you very much, Charles. Good night.
Charles Tarbey, thank you.
Thanks, Nick. Thank you, Sam.
Pleasure, Charles. Let's talk to you again.
Thank you.
Property Fast Track back next Monday.